Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. Welcome to the latest in Rugby Canada's series of online webinars. We're very happy to have you here. My name is Jackie Titley. I'm the Manager of Training and Education with Rugby Canada, stepping in for Nathan tonight. It's my pleasure and privilege to get to moderate this chat with Julianne Zussman. And I will introduce her in just a moment. For those of you who are online, thank you, welcome. Encore bienvenue à tout le monde. I will just draw your attention to the questions function that you'll see. We'll let Julianne present for a few minutes and then we'll open it up to a bit of a Q&A period. So if you have questions, I do invite you to drop them in the question box there, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as possible. Pour ceux qui sont en ligne et qui parlent français, n'hésitez pas de poser vos questions dans la boîte de clavardage. On va faire de notre mieux de répondre à tout ce qu'on peut. And I will do my best again to translate what's been dropped in there in both languages. Once again, thank you for being here. And I would remind you that all of the Rugby Canada webinars that have been hosted to date have been added to the Rugby Canada YouTube channel and are available there for you as well. So if you missed any, feel free to jump onto YouTube and catch up on a few of those. Now, without further ado, I'd like to present Julianne Zussman. I have known Julianne for quite a long time. Like I said, it's my pleasure and privilege to present with her tonight. It's pretty exciting. Julianne started her career, I guess, in Ottawa, but played university rugby in Montreal with McGill. We met playing for Quebec, Quebec senior women. We also got to play together with the U19 Canadian team. I was privileged enough to go on tour with the national senior women with her in 2013 to France. Julianne has been to 3 World Cups. She has 44 caps. She has been on the Sevens World Series. She retired in 2018 and made her debut on the Sevens World Circuit as a match official in 2019. She's led a very impressive career so far, and we are so excited to see what's in store for her moving forward. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Julianne.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And yeah, it's really cool to be sitting here with you. I mean, we do have a playing history together, and like so many of the women that I've played with, you've gone on to do incredible things in rugby, and right now you're the Manager of Training and Education for Rugby Canada. We have, you know, past teammates that are now on medical staff for rugby teams. They're doing coaching, they're doing broadcasting, they're doing game development. It's really incredible and super fun that we get to have this conversation today, so I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, the plan for today is I'm going to give a bit of a backstory on how I got into refereeing, and yeah, basically like how I got to where I am today. And then I'm hoping that we can sort of that the people sitting at home can dictate the direction of the conversation from there. We'll have quite a bit of time for question and answer. And I recognize that it's possible that right now we have, you know, we could have referees, coaches, players, players who are retiring, players who are reffing, fans, my parents, my mom and dad. We could have, you know, a whole ton of different people on there. So hopefully we can really speak to all those things, and hopefully my story will prompt some interesting questions from everyone.
Sounds great. I will turn off my webcam for now, and I'll pop back on at the end with some questions.
Sounds good. So I will take us back to 2017. So in 2017, this is our team at the World Cup in Ireland. And at the time, I was playing some of the best rugby of my life. I've been playing on the national team since 2007, so it only took about 10 years for me to get there. But we were all playing some of the best rugby that we'd ever played, and our team was still peaking in so many ways. So you can imagine the disappointment that we felt when we didn't make it out of our pool and we didn't qualify for a semifinal at the World Cup. So in 2014, many of us had been part of the team that had won silver at the World Cup. And so we really felt like we'd come in better, stronger, we'd done more, and we were ready to do something really special. So when we got knocked out of the semifinal, we ended up playing for fifth, and we won that game. So we beat Australia in the fifth place game, and we ended our World Cup on a high. But don't get me wrong, we went home and we were pretty disappointed, and we started the process of digesting, like you do after every World Cup. And so for me, that meant taking a total break from rugby, like a real step back. I did continue coaching. I loved coaching the bikes. I stayed involved in that. I threw myself into my work, into my family, my friends, all the rest of it. And I really wasn't sure how I was going to bounce back from that World Cup and where my heart was at. So in the new year, in January, we started a national training group up once again in Victoria, getting together a few times a week to start the new cycle. And so I threw myself into it and decided I would see how it felt. And it felt amazing, to be honest. I was in a better mood. I was pushing myself physically again, and I was surrounded by an incredible group of women. And I love the sport. I've always loved the sport, and I've always loved the training. I've always loved the team. But when you play rugby, and everyone listening will know this, you have to flip a switch when you get on the field. And especially when it comes to the contact side of things, you need to be fully committed. That's a complete non-negotiable. And I just couldn't flip the switch back on. Like, I couldn't get myself up for game day. And so I knew that for me, that meant that my playing days were over. But it didn't take away from everything that I still felt about the game. So I told all my friends and family at that point that I was done playing, because I knew that my heart and my head just weren't in it. I started playing a lot of spike ball, spending a lot of time with friends and family, and I sort of took a step into the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And the summer came along, and Saskatoon was hosting nationals that year. And I'd already had a few sort of background conversations with Nathan from Rugby Canada about my curiosity in refereeing. I have to say I wasn't totally sold on the idea, but I was curious about it. And more than anything, nationals was coming up, and I had spent the last 15 years of my life spending, part of my summer at nationals, and I saw an opportunity to be part of it. And so I contacted Nathan and I said, can I be a fly on the wall? Can I come? Can I listen to what your ref team's up to? Can I observe and just get a feel for what it's like on that side of things? And so I did that, and it was an awesome experience. So I felt like I was on a first date with rugby again, after we'd been married for 15 years, because it was really familiar and it was really comfortable, but in a lot of ways it was new and challenging and different. And that was kind of when I decided that I wanted to keep pursuing refereeing, and I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. But as I started to gain more experience in refereeing, I got into bigger games where I could feel the heat of the moment, and I had to make complex, high-speed decisions under pressure, and that was always my favorite part of the game as a player. So I knew that I was in the right place. But like any transition, you go from being, among the world's best at what you do to being a novice. It wasn't without some trepidation. So I asked myself a few questions. First of all, is this the dark side? Second of all, can I still be me And third, how am I actually going to get better? So first of all, is this the dark side? Well, if it is, it turns out that it's actually quite lovely. I was welcomed into the referee community with open arms, and I found out that referees are awesome people. I have yet to meet any of them with horns coming out of their head. And one thing that really stood out for me is their love for the game, and so that comes through in everything that they do. They're an incredible part of the rugby community, and I kind of underappreciated that before. The other thing is the social side. So within a ref group, the banter is alive and well, much like when players send a team to Vancouver Sevens Invitational. They get to be part of a team of 12 athletes, a few coaches, therapists maybe. We get to be part of a team of 30 referees, and there's definitely a great sense of camaraderie there. And then, as I've learned on the international side, you actually get to be part of a team with people from other countries, which has been really unique in refereeing. And then also, I thought that as you sort of would move up in refereeing, then you'd meet nerdier people who know the rules better. But it's actually been the opposite. I realized that you find that the referees who are at the top of their game, they're better and better people. And their people skills are a huge asset in doing their job. So secondly, can I still be me? So this this squirrel in the turtle shell is how I felt. My identity had always been as a player, and I felt super uncomfortable in the ref room. And I had to sort of reconcile this feeling. And so I think what I realized was that I could use my playing experience to shape the referee that I wanted to be, and that I was always going to be a player at heart. But being that referee, first of all, it means collaboration. So where I'm really passionate about refereeing is the intersection between players, coaches, referees, and how we can all work together to make a better experience for the players. Secondly is empathy. So I think it's like when you become a parent and then all you have to say to your parent is, "I'm sorry." So when I joined the ranks of refereeing, I had a ton of empathy for referees all of a sudden and what it was like to be them. On the flip side, I can't deny that I don't have a ton of empathy for players and what they're going through. I see a fullback under pressure making a 1v1 tackle, and I know what that feels like. And so actually using that empathy on both sides so that we can speak to each other with respect. And that's one of the things that's been really important in who I am as a referee, is that I'm always speaking to that person with utmost respect and understanding where they're coming from. And then lastly was taking the effort that I put into my playing experience and applying it as a referee, and putting in the hard yards, so to speak. So it really does depend what your goals are, but if you want to be a great club player or referee, you'll expect certain things from yourself to accomplish that. And if you want to be a great international player or referee, then you will need to expect other things of yourself. So that brings us to the next question. How do I get better? And it was a steep learning curve. So I'd only been reffing about a year when I debuted on the series. And so I had to learn pretty quickly how I was going to improve on the field. First was skill development. So much like being a player, you'll analyze things such as your percentage of positive tackles, your percentage of yes passes, etc. So in my first year, I had two pretty clear goals that I wanted to work on, and one was being in the right place at the right time. which sounds easier than it is. And secondly is making consistent breakdown decisions. So I can go into more detail in terms of like actual practical application of how I worked on those skills, and maybe we'll do that in the Q&A. But all that to say, the big question was, what do I do outside of Saturday? And there were some incredible tools that were offered to me. Much like when I was going through my playing career, I've had coaches and mentors that have helped me figure out what's going to work to actually make me better at what I do. And this is a mix of on-field trainings at club, video analysis, you know, fitness, mental skills, etc. Which brings me to my second point, which is the need to build a team. So as a player, you very clearly have a team that you work with, and you often don't have choice in that team. Sometimes you do. As a referee, you get to build your own team, and it's important that you are ticking all those boxes. So actually having that holistic approach to what you're doing, and I've been really, really lucky in the people that I've been able to bring on board to my team, and it does make an individual endeavor feel like something bigger than just yourself. And then the last thing is growth mindset. So I absolutely love this this comic on the left here, because I recognized pretty early that I was going to have a growth mindset. Like I said, you go from being an expert in your field to being a novice. You need to have a sense of humor about it, and realize that you're going to make mistakes. But ultimately, you know, mistakes become our best teacher. And so it's moving on from those mistakes and learning from them. So that's the end of sort of my formal presentation. We're going to bring Jackie back on. There you are, Jackie. Yeah, and then hopefully get into a little bit more detail on some of those things. Oh no, I can't hear you. 1 second. Try again. No, I'm gonna pull.
You still can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can.
There we go. Well, folks, as I was saying, I have to stop myself sometimes from calling Julianne Zussman and have to or trying to add a bit of professionalism to these proceedings. But thank you, Julianne, for that. I think that you've made a lot of linkages there between being a player and being a referee in the process of getting better, and you know, the way that we approach improvement and growth, and I think that's really important, because it's, you know, they're different roles, but it's all part of the same game. And I have to say that it helps to hear from someone, you know, going through that journey of becoming a referee, because I do agree that we could all have a little bit more empathy when conversing and interacting with our match officials. So thank you for my part from that. For that.
You can start by calling me Zus. I'm still the same person.
Well, that's true. That's true. We do have quite a few questions coming through, so I'll start with I'll start with a few, and then we'll see where the conversation takes us. How's that?
Sure, sounds good.
We'll start with, we've got a few new referees, or young referees, aspiring referees on the line, and so they're wondering if there were any key learnings for you really early on, or if you had any particular tips for young and aspiring referees.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I have to say, so I got certified in 2013 as part of the National Sevens team. We all did our certification. And it took me 5 years to actually start refereeing. So part of it was getting over that initial fear. So I think I thought that I needed to to be perfect on my first run out. And honestly, just people encouraging me. Well, they kind of threw me into the deep end. Is what happened is they said, go referee this game. And I was so glad I did, because I came off with the biggest smile on my face, but getting over that initial fear. So if you're starting out, and you do have to get certified to start out, but don't wait. Like, just get out there and start refereeing and get a feel for it. I think that was sort of one big hurdle that I wish I'd gotten over a lot earlier. And then, yeah, I think just being sort of patient with yourself. I had lots of questions when I first started, but I was really surprised by how supportive the referee community was. And I would often have like a more experienced referee offer to come out and watch me ref and to help me out. Also, don't be afraid to tell the people that you're new. You know, like you're human and you're going to make mistakes, and they're probably new at what they're doing as well.
That's a great point. A bit of a follow-up to that one. Do you think it's important for referees to have a certain amount of playing experience, or maybe to speak from your own personal experience at being a high-performance athlete, do you think that contributed to you being able to excel quickly?
I think it's an interesting question, because when I would second guess myself in my first year, let's say, of refereeing, and I'd be frustrated with myself, and I said, I've only been doing this a year. I think it's good, and we need to have sort of patience with ourselves. But at the same time, I had a friend say to me, "Yeah, but you've been playing rugby for 20 years. You know this game." And I think that we forget that our playing background actually gives us a lot of insight into the game. And so I think it goes both ways. I mean, I think that coming into it with a playing background, you have a ton of experience that you need to lean on, you need to leverage. At the same time, if you've never played before, then you're going to bring different aspects to the game. People with teaching backgrounds are often referees, and they bring a really helpful perspective as well. So I think just knowing who you are and being comfortable with that, and then just being able to express that on the field.
Nice. And to not let that be a barrier for you. Let's say if you don't have player experience or a certain amount, or if people are saying you need a certain amount, that shouldn't be a barrier for you.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Awesome. And for some of maybe the players on the field the players who are on the line, and who are often interacting with refs on the field, maybe in a captain's role, or maybe they're in the front row and having a chat at scrum time. Do you have any advice on the role of that player and how they might interact, or how they might make those interactions really positive?
Yeah, really good question. I think when I first started reffing, I was like, oh, this would have been really handy to know all this stuff when I was playing, right? And it's not just about like how you can cheat and what you can get away with and where the ref isn't looking. But if you can build a good relationship with the referee, or just any relationship with the referee, then you're going to ultimately both be moving closer to your goal, right? And one of the big things is how we ask questions. So choosing a time and place to ask a referee a question. Downtime is obviously most appropriate. And then if you can find a way to ask it so that, the referee is sort of coming to the conclusion that you want, but on their own terms, that's best case scenario. So often we say, hey, can you watch this happening?
Yeah.
But instead, if you're asking a question like, hey, like my team just dominated the collision, we have quick support, and we're not getting quick ball. What do you need to see from us to reward us with quick ball?
Right.
Now the referee's thinking. Now the referee's like, oh God, is there a tackler in the way? Oh God, was there entry an issue? Like, oh, was someone off their feet? Because you're showing a picture to them and helping them come to that conclusion. That can be really effective. And then also just, figuring out when you're saying too much and you're just becoming white noise as a player. I had a scrum that I was refereeing, a 7 scrum in Cape Town in December, and we get there, and I swear to God, every single person at the scrum told me something to look for. So it's 8 people, So, hey, like she's pulling me down. Hey, like she's not feeding straight. Like, hey, can you watch this? And I like,
Mhm.
what? And it all becomes noise.
Right.
So sometimes the best thing to do is to not say anything at all as a player, and then to really choose your moment to have that influence.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. Choosing your moment. I imagine it's a bit of an art, choosing the right question. You don't want to be seen as trying to manipulate the situation either. So I think I think it comes with experience. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely an art to it. But it's something we can practice, and it's not really something that we do practice. But it can have a big impact on a game. And there's games that come to mind from my playing experience where I wish I could have, known how to change the course of that game. We weren't getting the outcome that we wanted from the referee, and we didn't really know how to talk to them in a way where they would listen,
So help them see the picture.
help them see
Is
the picture.
help them
Yeah,
see the picture.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Ask the question so that the answer is the answer that you want it to be.
Okay. Great tip. And I assume that would apply to coaches as well, who are looking to have those conversations with referees. When would you say is maybe your favorite and least favorite time or let's say timing to have those conversations with coaches?
Well, least favorite time when you're screaming at me when I'm in the middle. Um, favorite time before the game. Before the
Okay.
game is a great time to chat about what you're looking to achieve on the day.
Mhm.
Maybe ask me what I'm looking to achieve on the day. Um, Usually that's a good time to have the conversation. Even I make a point of going out to club and university trainings. So invite a referee to come to training. Having them there, first of all, is going to give your players an opportunity to chat, ask questions. It'll give the referee a chance to work on some of their skills. Often we do that for breakdown, scrum, even open field, like run throughs. I like to go and work on my positioning. And then it does give you as a coach an opportunity to build that relationship and ask questions.
Awesome. I'm scrolling through our questions a little bit. Speaking of former Canadian internationals, we have a question here from Leslie McKenzie all the way out in Japan. So shout out.
Okay.
Hey, Leslie. Happy to have you.
Awesome.
She's mentoring a player recently retired from international sevens and is looking to set sights on refereeing. So again, asking about practical asking about practical pieces of advice for them in moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, Very cool. I think it depends what you want to work on. So I think one of the things, for example, that's hugely important in rugby is the breakdown. If you can get the breakdown right and you can be consistent in the way that you're interpreting all the players and their different roles, generally you're going to have sort of a good day at the park. So when it comes to breakdown, one of the things that I do is I started tracking all my breakdown decisions, and I started creating a log of where I was making either inaccurate decisions or inconsistent decisions. So it didn't fit with how I was otherwise, say, interpreting like a clear release, for example. So I started tracking them. And when you have like a one-off, you're going to make mistakes. You just scratch it out. But if you see something that keeps coming up, like you keep having that same picture and you keep getting it wrong, that's something you need to look at. So that was a really helpful tool that I used just in terms of, building that consistency over time.
Uh-huh.
The other thing I started doing early in my career was tracking when I was getting bumped and when I was getting caught, which again sounds ridiculous, but like it's I was running player lines, like I was converging with the ball, which is the worst place to be as a referee.
Right, right.
And so I started tracking, like, first of all, numbers, and I would see how many times in a game, and then also like when that was happening, so I could figure out how to be in a better position. Those are just two
Yeah.
tools. Yeah, there's lots of them out there. I'm happy to like share them maybe outside of this venue if you want to throw my email in the chat, or I can throw my email in the chat or whatever. But for me, it was really important to find things that were measurable and that were like that resonated with me, because as a player, I was so used to having this like structured learning environment that I needed some tools that I could lean on.
Right. That's a great point. We have a bit of a follow-up question, Laura, that I think links quite well to what you were saying about running player lines. It must have been hard to switch your brain off from doing that, right? You just do it so instinctually after a while. So we have a question here around building running technique and showing confidence in body language and training for that. Have you experienced anything like that? Has part of your training in the past been around the way you run to present yourself to not get bumped or to show confidence through your signaling?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll admit that I practice my signals in front of the mirror, like any good referee does, so that on the day, like, you're not sort of fumbling. And I think that's what everyone thinks that like every referee does at night.
Only some of them. Only some of them. I'm sure we can all think of a few.
The best thing I did was go to club trainings and to run in their club trainings. If you can get from point A to point B really effectively, then that's not what you're going to be thinking of on the day. So actually, like, getting yourself a really comfortable distance from the breakdown, putting yourself in between two defenders that are in front of you, so that you have a pretty quick exit when the ball goes, and then sort of knowing where you're going to next. And that's when you can allow your player instincts to kick in, and you can sort of drop into position that way. But when you get bumped in a training, people are way more forgiving than they are when you get shoved at an international match. So
Right.
so actually going and practicing, and in best case scenario, you get it filmed and you can review. I've been known to rock a GoPro from time to time, but these are all like little tools that you can use, and they might feel silly at first, but they actually become really comfortable. And going to a club training can be a little bit uncomfortable at first as a referee, but people actually end up really enjoying having you there, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Zess, about the club trainings. I think that I'm sure it would be, as you've said, it's quite helpful for you. And I think that a lot of clubs would, and a lot of players and coaches would appreciate the opportunity to have a referee there that you can access and ask questions and say, hey, what do you think about this situation? Are we legal here? Those kinds of things. How did you initiate those contacts and being able to go out to those trainings, and what kind of advice or what kind of advice do you have for coaches, players, referees that are looking to go out to their local club trainings? Because I think it's an underutilized opportunity for us across the country.
Yeah, I just used the contacts that I already had. So I started off going to my own club, or the teams that I'd been part of, and then I decided to branch out and go to some of the men's trainings. I started with the coaches that I knew, and then I just started sort of cold emailing. I figured out, how I could be comfortable in those environments, and then just would reach out to someone that I thought might be a good fit for maybe the pace that I was looking to referee at. If it was 7s versus 15s, that's going to present obviously different looks on the field. And so I started with situations where I was comfortable, and then I just pushed myself to go into those ones where I was a little bit less comfortable.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Hoping that more people take that opportunity moving forward to engage their local refs and have them out at their sessions. I really think it's such a great opportunity. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Here I have more of a gendered question. I don't know how much refereeing you've done on both sides of the game, refereeing men and boys and girls and women, but have you found general trends or differences in the way the game is played or the way the game is refereed, or is it, you know, once the whistle blows, it's all just rugby?
I think you're going to find differences across different regions, across different age groups, and then the men's and women's game, probably depending where you are in the world. I find that in terms of dealing with me as a referee, with the women, most of the women's teams that I work with, locally anyways, I know a lot of them personally, so that's easy in a lot of ways, but then challenging in other ways. Whereas the men, I'm completely anonymous for the most part, because I didn't play with them, obviously. So for me, it is a different environment to step into, but I don't find people are like nicer or meaner or treat me any differently at all. I think if anything, I get more questions from the men when I'm on the field, and that might be, like I said, because I have the playing history with the women. But the men really don't hold back. Like they will ask you what every decision you made was all about. So that's really challenging.
Do you get called sir?
I get called sir. I get called sir by the men and the women, and then ma'am, and they don't really know what to do. I respond to sir. Yeah. So for me, I haven't seen a huge sort of different experience in the different games.
Yeah. Fair. I'm seeing tons and tons of questions coming in, folks. Please keep them coming. We're going to do our best to get to as many of them as possible. So just to encourage you to keep those questions up, and if I don't get to them, then, or if we don't get to them, then I do apologize. But Zess has very kindly offered to be in touch after the fact. So we'll share some contact information at the end of the webinar for sure. Scrolling through, I see a couple questions on scrum penalties, so we'll probably just skate right over that one and keep going. Unless you really want to field that, Zess, that's up to you. We do have some questions about making on-field mistakes and how do you process that as an official. How do you process it in the moment? How do you work through it? Is it similar to what you did as a player? Do you have certain coping mechanisms or ways that you shake it off and keep going? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, it's a lot like being a player. So in the moment, generally, I think we're pretty good in the moment at moving on from things. Some of us use different grounding techniques, whether it be like key phrases or an action to bring ourselves back to the present. And for me, the big part is the sort of the compounding mental fatigue. So it's not necessarily in the moment, like pretty easy to move on and get focused on the next scrum or the next line out or whatever the set piece is. But the turnaround from game to game can be really challenging, especially when we have a sevens tournament. We're refereeing 3 games in a day. Sometimes you have an hour between games, sometimes you have 3 or 4 hours and you don't really know. So I always follow the same post-game process, no matter how the game went. So that's an anchor in how I'm moving through. So that involves like my cool down and the rest of it. But then I write down 3 successes from the game, 1 thing that I want to improve, and 1 thing that I wish I'd done differently. And then as soon as I write those down, I might have a few things I want to talk through with a mentor, or with a fellow referee, but for the most part, I just park it. And then you just go on to the next game, And so I think that process has really helped me physically move from one game to the next. That being said, it can be pretty exhausting at the end of a tournament when you start to sort of feel the pressure, or like all the buildup of the mistakes that you made. And I honestly just try to remind myself that failure is the best teacher. And it's really easy for me to sit here and say that. If any of my mentors are on the line, they're probably laughing because they know that it's not that easy for me. But ultimately, I am grateful for the mistakes that I've made,
Mhm.
because I'd rather be making them now, and I would, I know that I'm going to learn from them, and that those are going to highlight areas that I need to work on.
Nice. And how do you utilize your ref team? That you talked a little bit about building your ref team and your support network at the beginning of the chat. How do you lean on them for support or learning in those situations?
Um, there's, there's lots of different roles that people can play in your life. So I'm lucky. I have a few mentors that I can go to and just, just talk through sort of the emotional side of things, and then I have other people that I can talk through the tactical or the practical side of things. And if at all possible, the best approach that I've found has been to keep to keep that team pretty consistent. One of the great things about refereeing is that people really want to tell you about their experience and really want to give you their advice. But it means that you can get a lot of different voices in the room, and you can get conflicting information,
Yeah.
or conflicting approaches. And so I've sort of tried to keep as many of those voices consistent as possible. And then, yeah, I think it's just finding people around you that have a similar philosophy and approach that you have, and then just building a relationship with them so that you can actually go back and forth. I imagine it's really similar to what coaches do in building mentorship teams.
Mhm.
As players, we kind of have those coaches that really speak to us, and those are often the people that we call in times of need. So it's really
Mhm.
similar. It's just finding those people that speak the same language as you and that are going to challenge you.
Nice. Thank you. We'll go back to the technical side a little bit because I feel bad that I skated over those Scrum questions. So we'll go back. We'll give you a chance to maybe give some pointers. Um, let's say, what are maybe the key factors that you're looking for when refereeing a Scrum? And we'll do a Scrum first, and then we'll look at the breakdown.
Sure. Yeah. So Scrum, I mean, we can laugh about it. I spent my playing career at fullback. I was, 20 meters away from the Scrum, at
Well,
least
I
at all
mean,
times.
at fly half, I was a little bit closer, but not by much.
No, but I've loved learning about the Scrum. I think it's part of the game, that is so unique, and it's very niche. If you get it, then you really, really get it. So I've tried to ask as many questions as I can, get into as many people's heads as I can. But I think that what I've realized is that I also, my role as a referee is a little bit different than it would be as a coach or a player. So what I need is I need to give people an opportunity to contest. And so the biggest keys that I look for when I'm reffing, first of all, is alignment. So actually getting people in proper space and in their own space, so that they can engage in a contest. Secondly, stability. So everybody's feet stop moving before we go from one call to the next. That's what
Mhm.
real stability looks like. Third is the bind, which is pretty straightforward, but making sure that we do start in a strong, comfortable position where we can bind. And then fourth is the push, and that's the contest. So it's really those first 2-3 pieces, alignment, stability, and then getting to bind, that are most important. And then we just sit back and observe. So if we can actually set things up properly, then the answers, start to become a little bit more obvious when you don't get ball in, ball out. But if you skate over those things quickly, it's just hard to decipher what's happening. And that's when you really
Right.
need to have the Jedi skills of the front row to understand who's doing what. And even at that point, it's not always obvious who's pulling and who's pushing and who's doing
Mhm. Mhm.
what sort of dark arts under there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Scrum is the dark side, let me tell you.
It is an enigma.
Um, and then looking at the breakdown, would you say some similar things, or what are you looking at from from the attacking team and from a defending team or a team that's trying to contest?
Yeah,
possession.
I mean, the breakdown, the goal is quick ball. So if you're not getting quick ball, then the question is always, why aren't I getting quick ball? And um, in general, you can make a big picture assessment of what team's going forward and what team has dominated the collision. And generally, you'll switch your attention to the other team. So if the attack is going forward with support, then I'll switch my focus to the defense and see what they're doing, see that the tackler gets out of the way first and foremost, always the tackler out of the way, and then we look at the contest over the ball. So it can be hard to look at every single player all the time, which is why one of the skills we work on as a referee is how to figure out who the relevant player is going to be in each collision. So that's one of the things that we do. We talk about practical skills. I'll watch video, I'll pause the video as they're about to go into contact, ask myself, who's in control, who's going to dominate this collision, and then that allows me to switch a little bit sooner to the relevant player that might try and do something out of the ordinary in order to change the outcome of the breakdown.
Excellent, very helpful. Thank you. We have a great question, or I find a very intriguing question from Mr. Kevin Rouet in Quebec. Merci, Kevin. He says hi. And he would like to know if there is a law that you would like to change or modify, and what would it be, and why? So, what is it? Because of safety? Is it continuity? Is it something like that? But quelle loi et pourquoi?
Quelle loi et pourquoi? I think the one that comes to mind, is how we define a maul, because we're now seeing players not engaging in a maul, and then we've seen on the sevens stage, not so much in 15s, but on seven side, this like awkward contest, and the defending team will end up picking up this one person, which they can't actually, they can't pick them physically up off the ground because that's dangerous, but they'll sort of like drag them out of bounds. And it's like this minute and a half stalemate, and it just doesn't fit the game. It doesn't make sense in what we're trying to do in sevens. I'm sure there's some people out there that have better ideas than I do in terms of how you could change the writing of the law to make that go away. But for me, it just doesn't fit. So I would look at that one.
Okay. Very interesting. There is a great clip. It's one of those highlight reels, of one of the I think it's one of the Russian women's players getting picked up and handled out of bounds by the entire New Zealand team.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So that was definitely an interesting one. Wonderful. We have a few more questions on that are coming up around your transition and how you made that decision. And so, wondering if you can talk a little bit more about some of that emotional turmoil that you went through, and that identity crisis, and who you reached out to, or how you worked through that, because I think it's a relevant topic for a lot of athletes transitioning out of their playing careers. We all have that period where we go, I'm not playing anymore, or I don't think I want to be playing anymore, or do I want to keep playing? And as soon as you make that decision, it's who am I? So whether you're transitioning into refereeing or coaching or management or whatever role, if you choose to have one in the game moving forward, it's a similar feeling, I think, that a lot of us have. So if you could talk a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the greatest thing that I think we can do is talk about it, and to listen to each other, and to ask other people sort of how they're experiencing it and what they're going through, because yeah, it's definitely not easy. I mean, it's a huge part of your identity. It's a huge part of your routine. And like, I'm not fully through that transition myself. Like I'm refereeing right now. I don't know what I'm going to do next, and then next, and then next. It's a constant evolution. But I definitely think that like opening up those lines of communication with the people around you is massive. for me, yeah, it was important that I think what was cool about going into refereeing is that it captured a lot of the things that I loved about being a player and a lot of what made up my identity as a player. So when you stop playing, you don't stop being who you are. You know, you're still a go-getter in terms of your goals, or you're still maybe a team leader, a team captain, or you're still the person that works the hardest at the fitness, or you know, that person that you are doesn't change. And so it's been really cool seeing my friends that have retired from playing and how they have been the same person in what they're doing now. You know, Andrea Burke's broadcasting on CBC, like that's so Burke. Like she's, you know, she was always the talker on the team, and then now she's doing that in her own way. You know, and so it's just one example, but I think that yeah, I think applying those same qualities of who you are and just finding a different way to express that.
Nice. I love that. Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left, so we're going to move to some maybe some iconic moments so far, and some best moments for you, hardest and most fun and things like that. So you've refed a cup final on the World Sevens circuit. So what was that like? How did you find out about that appointment? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, so people are always curious about this, and I guess I was curious too, like how does it actually work in terms of like ref sort of appointments and selection, all the rest of it. So basically the way it works in the series is that we finish day one, and everybody has a chance to referee 2 or 3 games on day one, and then they bring us together at the end of the day, might give us a few pointers in terms of trends that they're seeing, what they want to see more of on day 2, and then they'll announce who's refereeing the quarterfinals. And that's always a big congratulations for everyone, because they go off of merit. And then from there, they'll bring us together again after either quarters or semis, depending on how far ahead they've appointed. And then they announce who's doing the big game. So for me, yeah, it was in Cape Town, 40,000 person stadium, a rugby nation, like really, like, you know, people that know rugby. And the South African men had just won in Dubai the weekend before, so like their crowd was on fire. So it was a really, really cool experience. And we have, it's a really supportive environment on the series where people will, you know, give you the pat on the back, give you the congratulations. And so it's the support of my peers. And yeah, it was a great experience. It much like playing, it kind of reminded me of playing in the semifinal in France in 2014, where the crowd was so loud, you could hardly hear each other. But it all became this white noise, and you really focus in on your task and what you need to do. And then you don't really sort of feel the energy or the exhaustion of it until you get off.
Right. Very cool. Yeah. So best moment so far, let's say, best refereeing moment.
Best referee.
Is it that one? Or I'm going to have to say, aside from reffing the final at Cape Town, which must have been unreal, what was your best moment?
I don't know. It was pretty cool. Even actually in Dubai the weekend before, is sort of like a ref moment, but a player ref moment, because I got to be right on the sideline when the Canadian women came off from getting their medal, and so like I was fresh off of my game and they were fresh off their game, and we all got to just like share some hugs and some laughs and stuff, and it was really cool to be there because I'm just such huge fans of what they do, and to sort of experience that moment with them was really cool.
Awesome. Hardest moment or worst moment?
Hardest moment, worst moment. I would say, oh my gosh, probably all the flack I get for being the only referee that's in the law book, not for refereeing.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but Zus is featured in the Laws of the Game book, for those of you who don't know. Sorry, Zus, what are you featured in there for? What's that photo of you?
Foul play for for stamping on an opponent. Yeah, who was in the way. She was the tackler and she wasn't rolling. So I did what I did and I got the yellow card and I deserved it. But that one gets brought up a lot in the referee circles. Yeah, I think that.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's a bit of a rough moment.
Any awkward moments refereeing former teammates, maybe in the club system?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would say awkward. Like, there's always some moments. There's some opportunities to like share a few laughs. No, so far so good. No one's giving me a hard time. I'm still waiting for, I'm still waiting for some of those one-liners, but we'll see if they come this season.
Fair enough. Hear that, all the players in BC. Zuss is waiting for it. Favorite stop on the tour?
Ooh, I was last year Langford. I got to assistant referee. That was
Nice.
unbelievable. And I was so excited to referee here at home this year. But yeah, the crowd in Langford is just unreal. It was also, I mean, yeah, last year I was on the sideline and so I could hear all the chirps coming in, whereas this year I was going to be in the middle and a little bit further away from the line of fire. So I was looking forward to that. Yeah, Langford's just got a special place in my heart.
Awesome. And 7s or 15s?
Oh gosh, love them both. You can't ask me that. No, they both have a very special place in my heart, and I mean, refereeing the two of them is kind of like playing the two of them. Like they're different beasts, and I love them. I love all my children.
Fair. True diplomatic answer. I like it. Thank you so much, Zuss. This has been great. It's been a really fun conversation for me. Great to see you. It's been a long time, so this has been really really great. So thank you for sharing all of your experiences, all your tips, and all of your insights. This has been great.
Thanks, Jackie. And this
You're
is
welcome.
both of our first webinars, so high five.
It is. I know. Absolutely. Go team. Everyone online, thank you for being here with us, for taking the time, and for participating. Thank you for your questions. They were great. Our next webinar is this Thursday, the 23rd at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern with the Arrows. That's on a new professional pathway for Canada, which will be very interesting. We've got 3 panelists from the Arrows on, so that'll be a great discussion as well. A reminder to all of you that there is an ongoing suspension of all rugby activities, in case you didn't know. That is ongoing, but Rugby Canada will be sending out another update no later than June 30th. Any final words, Zuss?
No, just thank you so much to everyone that logged on. It was really, really fun to have this conversation with you, Jackie. And don't be shy if people want to reach out. There's a way to add jzussman@gmail.com. Happy to take any of these conversations offline.
Wonderful. Any questions, comments, folks? You can reply to the registration email. It'll come to me, so I can always put you in touch with us as well. Thanks again. Have a lovely evening. Stay safe. Good night.
Bye.